Great day. Hey, welcome to the House of Cons. I'm Black Jack. Tribe Bug. Y'all hit that like button, subscribe, share the video, salute. Tribe Bug. Monag in the house. Salute. Sam in the house. Salute. Tribe Bug. 2 shots. And we back one more time, y'all. We started to make this a members only live stream, but I changed my mind. I said, you know what? Let's go and do it for the public this time. If I'm not gonna drop my style, let them go ahead and drop my style. We're gonna still do our thing, so I'm gonna do this one for the public, my naga. And we talking Black Kings of America, my naga. Salute. And I decided to change my style a little bit. Lately, I've been talking about these so-called black cons, my naga, kings and queens of ancient America, my naga. Salute. We talking about back in the day, my naga. We talking about our ancestors, my nagas, the real Indios, my naga, the real Aborigine, the real Indigenous American, my naga. Salute. Tribe up. Y'all saw the thumbnail. Y'all saw what it is. I told y'all I'd be on a little treasure hunt, my naga. I be on a Negoose treasure hunt, my naga. Salute. And I always try to bring something refreshing, something to wet your throat with that you might not have seen before. If you have seen this image before, hit me up in the chat and let me know. If you seen this, let me know. Let me know who it is if you know. If you haven't seen this before and you don't know who this brother is, you can hit me up in the chat and let me know that too. Say, Black Jack, I ain't never seen it before. Because it's alright. Because we're going to talk about it, my naga. I like to stay on something that's, refreshing. We like to pull the sword from the stone. We like to turn over a new page, my naga. It's all good to go over old stuff. But a naga love to go over something new, right? So here we are. And I'm looking at the chat. I ain't see nobody said nothing yet. So I'm assuming that maybe nobody don't know who this is. Only Big Tree said he ain't seen it. Salute Only Big Tree in the house. 2 shots. Only Big Tree. Tribe up. Bronze Flat Power God in the house. Salute. Tribe up. So Only say he ain't seen it. I guess nobody ain't seen it. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna talk about it. Before we get out into all of that, let's just take a look from a third eye point of view, my naga. Nothing like a third eye point of view, my naga. A bird eye point of view is good, but a third eye point of view is better, my naga. When you take your time and you investigate. You see the naga phenotype. You see he clearly holding a machete, my naga. And like some kind of axe or hatchet. You know. And we got the House of Cons watermark laid across his neck, you know what I'm saying? Just to let a naga know where it came from. But he just standing there, you know. It appears to be a statue, right? We're gonna get into it, y'all. We're gonna dig into it, man. We got a good one lined up, man. And y'all know it's always a hijack along the way. It's gonna be a hijack. You know, you climbing up this old mountain, it's gonna always be a hijack on that windy road. And we just gotta look out for that, my naga. So let's proceed. And I'm Black Jack, by the way, if you're new. Salute, tribe boy. Subscribe to my channel, my naga. You can get down with the Patreon, or you can get down with the membership, however you like it, man. You know what I'm saying? But it's gonna provide something good for you, trust me. We're building the channel, we growing, we're a small vibe, we're a small tribe. But the chosen was only a few. It was always just a few. And the first gonna always be last, my naga. Salute, tribe up. We know these things. We inherently know these things. We talking about these black kings in America, my naga. And since nobody ain't seen that picture before, we gonna get into it. But one thing I want to get into it, man. It's like deja vu. It's almost like colonizer debut. Colonizer debut, not deja vu. Colonizer debut. What I mean by that, the story never changes, my naga. Salute. When we look at these cons, it's the same old story, my naga. Somehow they want to say the cons was on the slave ship and they shipwrecked. Somehow they want to say the Khans came from a royal family in Africa. Somehow the Khans always breaking free and fighting in the mountains and making a stronghold of the Naga up in the mountains and being undefeated in the mountains in the Palenque, my Naga. Same old story. I wonder why. Is it cultural inheritance, my Naga? Are they culturally inheriting this fighting style from the mountains, my Naga? Where are they getting this from? We gonna talk about it. We definitely gonna talk about it. All this fighting up and whooping ass in the mountains. You know, your ancestors was whooping ass in the mountains, man. What kind of Nagas whoop ass in the mountains, man? The Grand Goose, you know what I'm saying? And then these niggas whooping ass in the mountain. Do y'all get it? the mountain ass whoopers. You know what I'm saying? That's inherent in yours. You inherited that. We're gonna talk about it, my Naga. We're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna tell y'all who this guy is. But before we go into exactly who this guy is, you know what I'm saying? Let's talk about something first. I want to get on the boat, take a little trip down here to Panama, my Naga. Let's go to Panama real quick. Salute Tribe Book. We out here in Panama now. And I'm looking right here, and I put up the Taino word for Samara. It say Gabriel Rocha analogies the Taino meaning of Samara to the intentionality of enslaved or colonized people extricating themselves from the conditions of oppression. Let's read that one more time. It says the Taino word Samara. Gabriel Rocha analogizes the Taino meaning of Samara to the intentionality of ... enslaved or colonized people freeing themselves, extricating themselves from conditions of oppression, freeing themselves from oppression, my Naga, by force. Samara, my Naga. We're talking about a Samara, the Taino word Samara, or Cimarron, my Naga. Samara, Cimarron, my Naga. Salute, Tribe Book. We about to get into it, y'all. We just talking about your ancestors. We're talking about your history, my Naga. And so when we look at this, let me scroll it down so y'all can see exactly what the Google search is. Taino word, Samara. Not African word, Taino word. Not European word, Taino word. Indigenous American word, Aboriginal word, Samara. Gabriel Rocha analyzes enslaved or colonized people freeing themselves, freedmen, extricating themselves from condition of oppression. And we see the Maroons of Jamaica. We ain't talking about no $5 red, man. We talking about straight up darkness. We talking about Maroons. We know Maroons is code word for indigenous, so-called Negro, indigenous blacks, Aborigines, so-called Bushmen. Maroon. Then they want to call them an African, right? An Afro-Panamanian, an Afro-Jamaican, right? And we're going to get into this because we're talking about the rights as indigenous people, my Naga. Afro nothing, African nothing, indigenous people, my Naga. So let's talk about it. These Maroons, my Naga, these Samaras, these Cimarrons. These Samaras, my Naga. But we know we just really looking at some Khans, some kings. Some kings and queens of America, my Naga, the ancient ones. We're talking about the Aboriginal, the ancient ones, my Naga. And we're gonna dig right into it. We're gonna move along with these sources. And we're talking about the indigenous slaves of Panama now. On just a Google search, my Naga. We're gonna keep it basic, my Naga. Let them bite this. It's very basic. The Cimarrons in Panama. See, we know they were indigenous, right? Samara, indigenous, right? Taino, right? Now they want to say African slaves who abandoned their Spanish masters. Abandoned? You mean who extricated themselves? You mean who extricated themselves, who freed themselves from conditions of oppression by force? They didn't abandon nothing. abandoned, extricated themselves from the oppression of the Spanish masters in the mid 1500s, when so-called brought to Panama, when found in Panama. Talking about they intermarried with. They don't always explain you Nagas being indigenous. Talking about you intermarried with somebody. You intermarried with your own kind, with your own tribe, my Naga. You are not intermarrying with outsiders. Outsiders are not intermarrying with you. They want you to think the natives were some $5 fakers. This is fork tongue, split lies, babble. The natives is the Negroes. They intermarried with other Negroes. There was no red band. This fakery lies. This is to confuse you. Intermarried with the natives. These racist ass $5 Indians on the Dawes Roads, they wouldn't dare get in a relationship with none of you Nagas. So don't believe it's BS. They all online hating, not talking about you ain't a real Indian, talking about you a freedman slave. Fake $5 MFers intermarried with nothing. And then they're gonna claim you learned the land in order to outsmart the Spanish. How? How could it so? If you were so-called African and somebody brought you here, how you gonna intermarry with some natives and learn the land and outsmart the Spanish when they the ones supposedly brought you here? These are lies. It ain't no learn the land. They knew the land like the back of their hand. Cause the stronghold of the Nagas tribal. Salute. Hey, Chief the Digger in the house, Managa. Chief the Digger in the house, Managa. Tribal. You in the stronghold of the Nagas. Talking about intermarrying with somebody. Nagas ain't intermarrying nothing. Talking about immediately learn the land. The land is ours. Outsmarting the Spanish. An estimated 3,000 of them lived in Nombre de Dios, a town on the Caribbean side. All right. We just getting some intel. On them, y'all. And we gonna stroll down here. And I know y'all were like, well, Blackjack, what the hell? You ain't told us who this was. I had to lay the foundation, Managa. We talking about indigenous slaves, Tainos. They talking about Samaras. That's where Cimarron really come from. They want to tell you Cimarron. Yeah, Samara, Managa. Indigenous words, Managa. Laying that foundation now. We in all Jamaica. We talking Maroons, talking Bushmen. We talking about indigenous people, Aborigines. We all in Panama, Managa. And we talking the Black King, so-called Black King, the indigenous king of Panama, Naga. Bayano. Salute, tribe up. Anybody ever heard of King Bayano, Managa? They want to tell you he's an African, right? The untold story of Panama's successful enslaved resistance, detailed in Aboriginal Maroons, Samaras. Not in no African Maroon, Aborigine, Managa, Samara. The saga of enslaved peoples remains a complicated history. Oh, it's complicated. It's always complicated when it comes to you Nagas. Y'all notice that? It's always complicated, Managa. It's complicated. He got a complicated relationship status with you Nagas. But in a new book has made it even more complicated. Oh, I bet. You call them Africans. Argue that this is really the first successful. He claimed the first successful. Ain't no first successful. The stronghold of the Nagas always successful. They always talking about the same re-rock story, same Puff Daddy remix. Oh, it's the first successful enslaved resistance in the Americas. Oh, they made the first successful maroon colony in the mountains. The same old motherfucking story, Managa. Said Robert Schwalter, associate professor of history at the University of Kansas. Kansas? Is he out there in Kansas, Managa? He all out there in Kansas like he a con, Managa. His book titled African Maroons in the 1500s and 16th century Panama, a history and documents. Yeah, documents, Managa. But these ain't Africans. These Samara, Managa. University of Oklahoma Press details how, from the 1520s through the 1580s, thousands of enslaved so-called Africans fled. But we know these are indigenous people. Thousands of indigenous people we just read. Enslaved or colonized people extricating themselves from conditional oppression. Taino word for Samara, Managa. And we talking about indigenous peoples, not Africans. We'll take our time and we'll rewind and we'll jump back and make our case about these lies And they don't have no slave ships from Africa. There's no captains from Africa. Can't name a tribe they took it from Africa. Oh yeah, they'll make up, they'll call it the Yoruba or something. They'll make up something, my nigga. The self-sufficiency of these people, yeah. So-called Africans, self-sufficient in America though, huh? On the land they don't know. Well, I guess they learned and intermarried with the Indios, huh? The self-sufficiency of these people, along with their periodic raids against Spanish settlements, incited armed conflicts as Spaniards sought to conquer these communities and kill or re-enslave their populations. This is not the first case of resistance. Yeah, we know. But this is the first one where the enslaved people gained their freedom, he said. Oh, what, like Haiti? While they are subject of the Spanish Empire, they have self-governing communities. Sometimes the Haitian Revolution gets that moniker. And certainly that's the first that leads to a completely independent nation. But here, it ain't leading no completely independent nation. They took their independent nation back. See, the writers of history, my naga, the writers of history, you have to correct this sentence by sentence, my naga. But here we have resistance that does lead to freedom and self-governance, which is significant. Yeah, just like Gasper, Anchor. Yeah, just like Miguel de Barilla. Just like Yosa Shatoya. Just like Granny Nanny and Cujo. Same story, my naga. Just like the new one we just did. What was his name? I gotta think about his name. I just learned about this guy. What his name was? Julio Pineda. Just like Julio Pineda, my naga. Just like Kamehameha, my naga. Yeah. Squalor defines African maroon as an individual who escaped enslavement and lived outside the bounds of colonial power. Who is he to define the maroon? And he claims he throws African in at the title, but we read right here, right in the beginning when we laid the foundation, that Samara was a Taino word for Cimarron. Samara, that's the origin of Cimarron, was Samara, a Taino word, speaking of the enslaved people who freed themselves from colonizers and they conditions of oppressions by force, my naga. So we don't need squalor definition of what a maroon is, especially when he's throwing in African on indigenous people. The terms come from the indigenous Taino word Samara. Oh yeah, what the Kawinki did. Yeah, you big dummy. You throwing African in there in the beginning, you big dummy. We already know it come from Samara. We already know this. We already know. Meaning wild, savage, going astray. Are you sure that's what it means in Taino? Are you sure Samara means wild, savage? They always calling you a savage, like old Tay Savage. Talking about you going astray. You ain't went astray. You freed yourself from the oppression of the colonizers on your own indigenous land, my naga. You ain't went astray nowhere. Went astray my ass. How you going astray on your own land, my naga, that you know like the back of your hand? Talking about it mean wild savage. It didn't mean wild savage. That's not what the Samara mean. That's not what the Taino said. The Taino said it mean enslaved or colonized people who extricated themselves from their condition of oppression. That's what the Taino said. That's what our ancestors said it mean. So down with this colonizer descendant say it mean. It gets picked up to describe both people and livestock. No, you don't call us livestock, Managa. We'll livestock your ass back on the ship up out of here. The Spanish, especially in the Caribbean, will say when cattle or pigs go feral, they're cimarrones. Okay, y'all got jokes, huh? Then it gets complicated by the idea of being marooned on an island, which comes into English as sailors appropriate the Spanish term to mean lost or abandoned. He said, all this confusion. They throwing them, this whole stupid story talking about some cattle. We know what Samara mean. You're not finna throw us off with a stupid ass paragraph here about cattle and all this and what the Spanish thought. Throwing all this fluff and this garbage. It's stupid. It's very dumb. It's very, very dumb. You're trying to throw somebody off the trail, right? As Squalor expounds in the book, Maroons resisted Spaniards not only by running away, raiding for supplies and defending their communities, but also by forging alliances with foreigners interested in undermining Spain's claim to the mainland. In the 1570s, Francis Drake spent time among Panama's Maroons. The story is mostly lost to history. Yeah. Lost to history, Managa. You always lost, Managa. The lost tribe, it's always, hey, salute JJ in the house, Managa. Salute JJ pulled up, Managa. Salute tribe up. Why you always lost in your story, your history, your land? You always lost. Lost tribe. It's always you. It's always you. This story is mostly lost to history. Yeah, we know. Often because so many of the enslaved people were nameless. No, they were not nameless. You got the nerve to sit here and call our people nameless. You son of a squalor faced the task of translating hundreds of 16th century documents in English. His books marks the first such in the language to tackle this history. I don't trust his book. I will have to break his book down sentence by sentence with my own thoughts. He believes their story should matter to today's society because it presents yet one more window into how, even during the harshest periods, this is not transatlantic, of the indigenous slave trade, indigenous individuals found ways to resist enslavement, secure their own autonomy like they always were, and organize those communities and lead them. The fact we see individuals fleeing slavery who are able to hold the Spanish Empire at bay, not just the Spanish, the French, the English, and fight them to a standstill for almost 50 years, 5 decades, and then negotiate for their freedom and right to govern their community. Salute, tribe up. This the same story, right? All our ancestors was going to the mountains, taking their freedom, establishing communities in the Palenque. We seen the buildings, we seen the stone structures that they can't explain in the mountains. We seen them. And then negotiate for their freedom and the right to be sovereign, Managa. That shouldn't be a testament to the resilience of people who suffer, right? There was no dislocation, man. They a dislocation from their homes, not from no other country. We been here, and we gonna stay here. We will be here when all you other MFers die and be gone. We will still be here. A KU faculty member since 2011, Squalor became interested in this topic when exploring a comparative study of indigenous, not African indigenous, no, indigenous encounters in early Spanish America. You're speaking with the sport tongue. You want to try to include a lie with the truth to make people believe the lie. You want people to say, oh yeah, see, they included indigenous with African, so it had to be some Africans. No, MFer, you are lying. They were indigenous slaves. You won't get me with your fork-tongue, half lie, half truth. This built upon the research of his first book, Géneros de Gente in early colonial Mexico, defining racism, racial difference. You racist MFers always lying. University of Oklahoma Press, 2016, which looked at the creation of racial categories in Mexico. Yeah, we'll just make racial categories. You ain't an indigenous Taino no more. You black now. And this person, he ain't European no more. He's an American too now. We call him white. He's an American too now all of a sudden. So you gotta take your crown. A KU International Program Research Award allowed him to travel to Panama to document the places occupied by indigenous enslaved indigenous peoples, Managa. They told you right there, they don't throw a fork-tongue lie in there. They told you it's the indigenous people. I wanted, why they including indigenous people in the Maroon story then? Because they is indigenous people. I wanted to be able to go to the cities like Portobello and actually view the landscape in a way I can't from just reading these documents. All right, man, he all in this. Let's go to the next source. I don't care about how he feels. Go to the next source. A legacy of strife, rebellious slaves in 16th century Panama. A legacy of strife, Managa. They're talking about abandoned. They abandoned their Spanish masters. It don't look like abandonment to me. It's like somebody was taking some heads off.
Go $5 ass down before I make change.
And right now we on repository Brentwood.edu. Bryn Mawr College. A legacy of strife, rebellious slaves in 16th century Panama, Managa. And we ain't gonna read this whole thing. This is very long. This is very, very long. We're gonna just touch some bases on the first little documented page or two, just to make some connect some dots, Managa. That's all. We're connecting dots. It's a legacy of strife, rebellious slaves in 16th century Panama. And if you want to read this entire document, you know, I haven't read the entire document. I skimmed through it, but I do plan on reading the entire document. I downloaded it. You can download it. There's the title. A legacy of strife, rebellious slaves in 16th century Panama. A group of 16th century chroniclers bestowed the name War of Bayano upon what they interpreted to be a single specific self-contained event, a major uprising carried out by rebel slaves, you know, indigenous peoples, right? Whom they termed Samara or Cimarrones, right? That racked the Isthmus of Panama in 1555 to 56. This essay will investigate the contemporary descriptions of the event with the goal of illuminating how an agreed upon understanding of the rebellion, specifically a triumphalist interpretation that glossed over many of the actions of Bayano himself, became the standard account retold and embellished by several writers who fashioned chronicles that included descriptions of the uprising. Several chroniclers writing in the period between 1580 and 1620 embedded a narrative of the War of Bayano in their wide-ranging histories of the Indies, Managa, the Indies, Managa, the West Indies. Juan de Castellano devoted several lines of his massive heroic poem, Elegias de Varones Ilustres de Indias, to it. Toribio de Ortiguera described the event in his journal Del Rio Maranan. Pedro de Aguado devoted several chapters of his Recipitulación Historical to the war. And man, I don't feel like reading all these colonizer names now. Alright, we see the colonizers was talking about it in their books. My aim is to explore the accounts of the event in order to provide an analysis of it that is more satisfactory than those that have appeared previously. In doing so, I will investigate the methods and motivations of the chroniclers who worked to lessen Bayano's central role in the action as they fit the event within their broader narratives of Spanish conquest. So see, he gonna break down how they was trying to minimize the man role and all this here, you know, the racist Spaniards and everything they was doing, right? The haters, right? They want to minimize his role, right? And make the falling within the broader narrative, right? Antonio de Alcedo writing in a geographical compendium published in the late 1780s provided a helpful thumbnail entry for Bayano. Managa. Salute tribe, we talking King Bayano. We talking Khan Bayano, Managa. Indigenous American, Managa. Not no African name. Bayano is not even an African word, Managa. They're talking about a Taino word, Managa. Just like Samara, Managa. Bayano, salute. Tribe, you big dummy. Tribe. Let's go. As a work of the European Enlightenment, Alcedo's entries affected an objective, fact-based tone, with the author's apparent goal being the deployment of his considerable knowledge to confront and dispel the myths and half-truths, Managa, that had accredited to the peoples and the place names of the Indies, Managa. See, this good right here, Managa. I could do a whole stream just on this. I'm not gonna even dig deep into it tonight. But you see this author right here, he's telling you, hey man, it's half-truths, man. Cause he know these are Indians, Managa. These are Indigenous Americans. Let's move to the next source. Black rebels, the Samarans, or the Samara. Not Cimarron. Samara. A 16th century Panama, Managa. And it's on JSTOR. Black rebels, so-called black rebels, the Samara, not no red rebels, black rebels, the indigenous Samara, Managa. Hey, LL in the house, tribe up, salute, tribe up. Never hungry again in the house, tribe up, salute. Romani Bay in the house, tribe up, salute. Legend of Naga, Charlie, Mo Naga. Man, they don't even, man, they just freezing up my chat lately, man. My chat ain't never been freezing like this. They be hating, man. There's a lot of hating going on in the shadows, my Naga. A lot of hate going on in the shadows, my Naga. So-called black rebels. Alright, they talking about read and download. Alright, we're gonna do an alternative. I don't want to I don't feel like I already done download it. I don't know why they asked me to download it again. Alright, let's look at the preview real quick. Black rebels, the Samara of 16th century in Panama. The strategic location of the Isthmus of Panama within the commercial network of the Spanish Empire and the need to defend it has greatly influenced historical writing on 16th to 17th century Panama. Most studies have emphasized military and economic history, and with few exceptions, have shown little interest in other aspects of Panamanian life. An excellent review of the historical literature on colonial Panama can be found in Christopher Ward, Imperial Panama, Commerce and Conflict in Isthmian America, 1550 to 1800. Albuquerque, 1993. Despite a continuing emphasis on the usual themes of trade and defense, there is a growing trend to focus on other topics such as population movements and social classes. One of the areas still awaiting further investigation and study is the history of the Samara of Panama. Population movement, Samara. Okay, the two principal primary sources for the role of the Samara are the collections and documents from the Archivo General de Indias in Seville, published by Irene Wright. See, this is where your history at, Managa. In the Indias. Don't be looking at Africa, you ain't finding nothing. All your history is in the Indias, Managa. All in Spain, they got your stuff on records about the Indias. Hey, one general in the house, tribe bust salute. The two principal primary sources for the role of the Samara, all over there in Seville, published by Irene Wright and Carol F. Joplin, respectively. Wright's documents concerning the English voyages to the Spanish Main, 1569. There was a source. Y'all better get that. There is a source. I got it. They say the two primary sources. There's one. It says documents concerning the English voyages to the Spanish Main, 1569 to 1580. London, 1932. Contains the correspondence of Spanish officials on the isthmus to the king relating to the activities of the English pirates and their alliance with the Samara. Oh, so the English pirates got allied with the Samara against the Spaniards because they trying to enslave the indigenous people. See where the lies and the double crosses going on? You're getting double crossed, Managa. Joplin's Indios y Negros. See, man, you cannot make it up, bro. I can't make this if I tried, y'all. Indios y Negros. It's always the Indian and the Negro together. There's one. Indio y Negro. They calling you an African American. They need to be calling you an Indio American, Managa, or a Negro Indio. Go back to what the documents say in the 1500s. Indios y Negros in Panama. I gotta get that one. In Los Siglos. Yep. Gotta have it. Talking about a maroon. Naga, you a Samara. Naga, you an Indio. It's a selection of documentation, and I dare in the Pan African challenge me on this, man. I dare a Pan African booty shaker want to be from Africa so bad. You want to be black power ass Naga so bad. Challenge me, my Naga. I tell you about yourself, Naga. It is a selection of documents detailing specifically with the history of the black Indians. Not no black and Indians. They always throwing an in there to throw you off for a ton. Throw you off. Half truths. Not no black Indians. Black and Indians, so-called black Indians. And contains a wealth of information about the Samara. Among the early writers, the Chronicle of Pedro de Aguado is of particular value for its rich account of the Samara King Bayano, Managa. See, man, they're telling on themselves, man. I'm gonna get these books and stuff they talking about too. Black and Indian, these Nagas, man. Stronghold of the Naga, the Black King, motherfucking Bayano, Samara King, Managa. The writings of Maria del Carmen Mina Garcia, especially her volume on La Sociedad de Panama in El Siglo, Sevilla, 1984, presents a thorough overview of Isthmian society with several chapters devoted to the black population and the Cimarrons. Hold on, I thought the Samara was the black population. Well, see, you can't talk yourself in circles with me. Two other informative studies are Federico Guillat, Negros Rebels, Rebels, and Negros Samara, Buenos Aires, 1961, and Armando Fortune, Los Negros Samara, en Tierra Firme y su lucha por la libertad, Revista Loteria, 1970. Another valuable contribution is an article. Whoa, they got a whole lot. Boy, they got a whole lot. We just was in the intro. We ain't even getting to nothing. We just was in the intro, man. That's another source I'm going to download and go to. We ain't about to read it all tonight. It's very long. They got mountains of evidence, my nigga. A new discovery puts Panama as the site of the first successful slave rebellion. Deep in the archives of the Naga. Hold on, y'all. Deep in the archives of the Naga. A new discovery, my nigga. Historian rescues to tell the brave Samara, my nigga, Maroons, right? Let's look at this. This is not a good photo. You can't make out much. I see some boats in the background though. You see colonizers. That's enough. I seen enough. As soon as I see them boats, I know Naga somewhere running around and the colonizer putting up. The 17th century fort at Portobello built by enslaved labor. See? Look now. Check this out, y'all. They say this is the 17th century fort at Portobello built by enslaved laborers. So we know they're talking built by indigenous people. They always telling you these forts was built by Indians and Negroes or slaves. They always telling you that, right? You know why? Because that's what they found when they came there. They said these Nagas built their own fort and they just took the fort, my Naga. They didn't enslave the Indians and make them build the fort. No, they found these stone forts already here. They said, whoa, these Negro Indians built forts, my Naga. They seized your dominions, my Naga. Doomed diverses. That's why they always telling you the forts built by Negroes and Indians. They saying slave laborers. Yeah. Overlooks the Bay area where some of the earliest Maroons settled after gaining their freedom. They had a fort right where they settled at, my Naga. Talking about built by slaves. Oh, what you mean? After they freed themselves? You mean these indigenous people that freed themselves? When you say built by slaves, what do you mean by that? After you still want to call them slaves even after they freed themselves, my Naga, and they built their fort near their Palenque, my Naga, that overlooks their village, my Naga? As you see today, you want to say the Spanish built it using slave labor. Lying MFers. A dogged U.S. scholar has upended a dogged U.S. Who they talking about? Black Jack? They talking about I'm a dogged ass. They say Black Jack is a dogged ass U.S. scholar. He upending the controversial wisdom about enslaved indigenous in the New World by demonstrating that the first successful slave uprising in the Americas occurred in Panama, not in Haiti, as many have long believed. Is it even Panama though? How many of these slave rebellions of indigenous people we got to keep finding out about with the same kind of story, running to the mountains and whooping y'all ass from the Palenques? Robert Squaller, a University of Kansas historian, discovered New York. We read all about Robert Squaller. We just read all about all this. So this is the same. This is another source talking about the same stuff to show y'all it's real. They say Squaller up in Kansas. They say he discovered new details about the Panama riot. He said, holy shit. He said, I got some new details. At the General Archives of the Indies, not of Africa, of the Indies, my Naga, a repository in Seville, Spain, devoted to the Spanish Empire in the Americas and Asia. Oh, Asia, India Superior. Oh, we on to y'all. We on to y'all big time. We're seeing right through all of this. The papers include in letters royal edicts, my Naga. They had royal edicts. And court documents shed new light on several groups of enslaved indigenous people and in and around what is now the Panamanian province of Colon, my nigga. The Spanish explorer, Vasco Nunez de Balboa, Rocky Balboa looking ass nigga, first transported captured indigenous people, not Africans, to Panama in 1513. 1513, man. They ain't had time to go get no Africans. They lying. Around a decade later, the enslaved population began to flee captivity. They started running to the mountains, first individually and then in groups. As the ranks of the self-emancipated grew, they conducted raids on the Spanish cities and highways. They went in Spanish cities and highways. This was your Naga cities and highways that they took to gain riches and to free fellow indigenous peoples, not Africans. These Maroons, not an English term, they talking about the English term, right? These Maroons, an English term used for formerly enslaved people who had freed themselves, tied up Spanish forces in a costly guerrilla war for decades. They said 50 years, eventually forcing a negotiated peace. Yeah, just like Gaspar Anka did, just like Joseph Chatoya did, just like Cujo and Granny Nanny did. Same story. In 1579, Panama's High Court granted permanent freedom to the resistance leader, Macambique, and his community of Maroons throughout Spain's territories in the Americas. The decree, long overlooked by historians, they say, yeah, we'll overlook that one. They say we'll overlook that decree. The decree, long overlooked by historians, marks the success of this series of uprisings, which took place more than 2 centuries before Toussaint Louverture helped lead the Haitian Revolution. The success of Panama's indigenous people established a precedent for securing freedom of autonomy that the other indigenous people will repeat over and over again in the centuries to come in Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, and Jamaica, said Squalor, who details his research in a 2021 book called African Maroons in 16th Century Panama. We know he's talking about the indigenous. Naga, we know this, right? See through their lies, my naga. Right on through their lives. The 16th century indigenous freedom fighters formed self-governing settlements in the regions around the Spanish. You know, if these were really Africans and they fought their way to freedom, why didn't they fight their way to make a boat and travel their ass back to Africa if that was the truth? Why they ain't fight their way to steal a Spanish boat then and go back where they came from if that's the case? Because these are lies, my naga, and we see right through their lies. They can't fool us with their lies. These indigenous people, they made their stronghold right where they renaming their land back to the ancient name. They say this ain't Santo Domingo. And them boys in Haiti say this is ancient 80. And these so-called Maroons, these Samara, these indigenous Samara, talking about Congo and all this here. It's a more than 4 centuries later, the Portobello community lives on. The amazing thing about Portobello is that the people who live there today have a direct connection to the people who came from Congo and Angola. Many of whom were Maroons. Oh, they was Maroons before they got here. They know their history, even though few outsiders do. This is funny, man. Other scholars, meanwhile, have been celebrating Squalor's defiance. Ben Vincent III, a historian and executive vice president at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, said Squalor's exceptional work has engineered new pathways for teaching about rebellion, as well as understanding how peace was brokered and how different imperial aims created space for African, so-called African resistance. Lies. You got to use your mind, Managa. Think about this. It's impossible for these to be Africans. You know why? It's impossible for these to be African slaves to escape and form independent communities and defeat the colonizer. You know why it's impossible? If they was that damn good at fighting, they would have never got brought here in the first place. Salute, tribe up. If they was really Africans, they, instead of defeating the Spanish in America and running to the mountains, they would have defeated them in their homeland right in Africa, Managa. This is indigenous people, Managa. And this the colonizer lying to you to fool you at your inheritance, Managa. They want you to think you are African. They want you to think your inheritance is across the sea and therefore you have no inheritance. They want you to abandon your inheritance, Managa. Let's give a shout out to the members. Tribe Bus, salute, 2 shots for the members. Shout out for Chris Broderick, Shout out for 203 Low Gang, Kai N on the Big Tree, God's Favorite, Legend of Naga Charlie, Anthony Barnett, James Williams, Maxine Cross, Ern Jordan, Original Skywalker, William Scruggs, Hampton McNeil, Ambush Predator, Jackie Salat, JJ, and Managa Reggie Miller. Salute Tribe Up. Salute to the members. 2 shots to the members, man. Join that list, Managa, because most of this is going members only, Managa. We decided to get down for the public tonight, but the majority of this content is going members only, man. And we just want to keep proving to y'all that we got more and more and more and more to come, Managa. Just like Mo Naga, Managa. We got more to come. And let's do one last read on King Bayano, Managa. We can go to Wikipedia, we can go to hijack source. So we can type in King Bayano on Google, we get these images. We get a lot of different stuff. If we click on images, we get images. We get different images. Some of King Bayano. Some we always seeing this so-called maroon, right? They always showing this Naga. They show this Naga on everything. They just like they always showing you this here on the right, which we know is indigenous people. We looking at his loincloth. We know exactly who we looking at. We know that ain't no African. We know all these indigenous people that they loading up on the ship to take your ass away from here. So they always got the same narrative, Managa. They always got the same narrative. So we see that they call him an African king of Panama, hijack. They want to call the man Yoruba. They want to say he a Mandingo. They want to try to say he from West Africa. They try to say he from Angola. I'm like, God dang, how many homelands y'all finna give my man? The man clearly is an indigenous con. All right, let's go to some details about him. Let's go to Bayano, King Bayano, Managa. Let's go to Wikipedia. The first source. Wikipedia always first. Wikipedia got to make sure Wikipedia say, hold up, before we go there by King Bayano, let us give you our disclaimer first. That's what Wikipedia be on. Wikipedia be on that bullshit. But we like to read it. You know why? Because I like to expose Wikipedia and their lies. Bayano, also known as Volano or Volano. Remember we read Volano or Vano, like Mano, Vano. Well, he was indigenous slave, man, by the Portuguese, who led to the biggest slave revolts of 16th century. Now, I'm going to show y'all something about this. They want to keep calling him a slave from Africa, but I'm finna make the argument: was he ever even a slave? Did he ever work on a plantation? Did he ever pick cotton, sugar, or tobacco, Managa? Did he ever get whooped, Managa? Let's find out. Let's see what Wikipedia says. They say he was a so-called African enslaved by the Portuguese, who led to the biggest slave revolt of the 16th century Panama. Captured from Yoruba. I knew they was gonna say Yoruba. We already was talking about Yoruba on the last live stream. In West Africa, it has been argued that his name means idol. Different tales tell of their revolt in 1552, beginning either on the ship en route. Look, see, let's start right here. I told you. Was he ever on a plantation? Did he ever get whooped? Did he ever pick any damn thing? It don't look like it. It said different tales tell of their revolt in 1552, beginning either on the damn slave ship en route or after landing in Panama. But I had read somewhere else talking about they crash landed. That same old story, right? And the Naga swam the shore. That's what they always saying. Darien province along its modern day border with Colombia. Rebel slaves known as Samara, indigenous peoples, set up autonomous regions. They was already autonomous, known as Palenques, Managa. In the mountains, Palenques, Managa. Many of which successfully fended off Spanish control for centuries using guerrilla war and the alliances with pirates or indigenous nations. No, why you just put indigenous nations first, man? Don't try to throw that in there last like you hiding it from us. You like you gonna sweep it under the rug real quick. All right, they ain't gonna pay attention to this. Or indigenous nations. Yeah, man, we know. Bayano's forces number between 4 and 1,200 Samara, depending upon different sources, and set up a palenque known as Ronconchola near modern day Chepo River, also known as Rio Bayano. They fought their guerrilla war for over 5 years while building their community. However, the most important primary source, written in 1581 by Pedro de Aguado, we just read that, devotes space to their religious life and describes the activities of a bishop. Oh, he had his staff of Moses? He had his bishop staff, my nigga? You mean to tell me he had a staff, my nigga? Who guided the community in prayer, so-called baptism in their words, my nigga, and delivered sermons in a manner that Aguado believed to be essentially Christian. He believed it to be Christian, and it was Hebrew, my nigga. It was Israelites. Bayano's forces numbered between 400 and 1,200 Samara, depending on various sources, and established a palinque known as Ranacolon in today's Chepo River, later known as the Bayano River. They fought their guerrilla war for more than 5 years while building. Did I just read that? Oh yeah, they got it in here twice. Somebody see, Wikipedia is hijacked. The Spaniards with Captain Carreno at their head managed to destroy the Bayano palinque called Rolacolon, and after, look, that's not even African. Look at that word. That is indigenous. Come, look, Tenochtitlan, Rolacolon. See, these is indigenous words, my nigga. You can't fool me. And after a surprise attack, managed to capture Bayano himself, who was taken by Captain Carreno to Governor Sosa, who was then in nombre de Dios. The conciliatory governor forgave Bayano his crimes and robberies and signed a peace agreement with him, setting him free. It only served to allow him to continue his campaigns of robberies and assaults, and with more viciousness than before. He like, get off our land, salute. Finally, Pedro de Ursua captured Bayano and 300 of his men without losing a single soldier. Bayano was sent to the president of Panama, to the viceroy of Peru, who received him with curiosity. He was curious, my nigga. He said he received him with curiosity to see who and how was the man who had remained for so long in opposition to the authorities, and treated him very courteously, sending him to Spain, where he remained until the end of his days in the city of Seville, maintained at the expense of the royal treasury for life. Bayano's name has become immortal in the Panamanian consciousness through the naming of a major river, a lake, a valley, a dam, and several companies out there. They guys well named it Bayano, not Panama. It probably was named Bayano in ancient times. I wouldn't be surprised, my nigga. Let's go on another source one more time. I want to show y'all one more thing before we get out of here tonight, man, about Bayano, man. King Bayano. Let's blow this up so everybody can see. I was skim reading through these different sources when I was, look, Bayano, he was a Mandingo. These people stupid, man. These people so stupid, man. They say he was a Mandingo. I don't think no Mandingo got ever brought over here anyway. Hold on, let's continue. Hold on. His significance in his lead in Panama's largest slave rebellion, rebellious slaves. Look. They say rebellious slaves. That's the one we looked at earlier on JSTOR. See his thought-provoking essays. Bayano, precursor de la Libertad de los Esclavos. King, right? He exacted a great and public justice upon the rebels. Hold on, he was the king, my nigga. He wasn't no African king. He was a Panamanian king. Hold on. Despite being exiled and never allowed to return home, they had to keep. They ain't let the man die in Seville, man. They had to take they on their expense, because he was the king, man. They removed him. King Bayano holds a significant place. Yeah. Hold on. Talking about not he Yoruban king. Hold on, wait a minute. Got you from the Yoruba community. Hold on. Bayano, also known as Bolano, was an African. Hold on. Let me keep going. Exposing the life of this man, according to history, was considered in the mid 16th century as the king of the Maroons. He was the king of Panama, not just the Maroons. King Bayano and his warriors lived in the impenetrable fortresses. Yup. We know all about the fortresses up in the mountains, and it was from this place that they went out to attack the Spaniards. It was one that I read where they was talking about, they were saying the Spanish noticed how the other indigenous people was treating him like a king, and that's why they respected him. You see, they ain't kill him or put him in slavery for real. They sent his ass to Spain. He was a curiosity. This nigga was the king of Panama. Let me see where I find that source at. I'm gonna have to pull that back up. where he was saying the Spaniards, they were looking at this Naga and they observed how the other Nagas was like, yeah, this that Naga. You know what I'm saying? And they was like they had great respect for him. Cause they saw how the other people, the King Bayano, look. Ferdinand remember his article, El Rey Bayano, El Rey Negro, just like Julio Pinedo, El Rey Negro, El Rey Bayano, y los Negros Panamenos. See, the King Bayano and the black Panamanians, not Africans. Wait a minute, a brief history of Muslims. See, man, this hijack, man, they not Muslims, man. Everybody want to hijack us, man. Everybody want to be the Naga, boy. They want to be the Naga so bad, man. This is crazy. He a Mandingo, he a Yoruban, now he a Panamanian Muslim. Come on, man. Bayano's revolt coincided with the King Miguel de Barilla. See, he hollered at King Barilla, he hollered at his brother in Venezuela and said it's about to go down. And was followed by Luis they done gave this man the last name Mozambique. They done gave this man the hijack last name. I mean, I ain't even looked up Luis Mozambique. I'ma look him up. I guarantee you he was indigenous. They done gave this man Mozambique last name. Anchor, Black King. Look at that, 1564. They talking about Bayano, right? Yanga, Bayano, right? Bayano didn't tolerate slavery for long, right? I'm gonna find that source, man. I'm gonna show y'all on another time. Probably post it in the community chat where they was talking about the Spaniards. They was looking around. They were like, we done captured this Naga. They treating this Naga like they were like the other slaves, the other indigenous people looking at this Naga like royalty. You know the same story. Naga was the king, my Naga. Naga kings of America, my Naga. Ancient Naga kings, my Naga. The Venezuela, the Panama. All over the place. It was you the whole time. And they hiding it. They hiding it by not even telling the story for one. If they do tell the story, they want to call you a Mandinka now. They want to try to make you, yeah, nigga, you old Big D Mandinka warrior. They got you Nagas trying to be proud. Yeah, y'all Nagas grabbing your jaw. Yeah, I'm old Big D Mandinka. Naga, your ass ain't Mandinka nothing. Naga, your ass a mother, your ass a MF your ass a MF and descendant of a Taino or some shit. You this dumbass hijack history people be believing all this old pro-black Afro proud, man. Y'all, man, Nagas better get right with this stuff, man. Nagas better get right with their ancestors and get right with the Most High, man. Cause all this stupidity and all this claiming other cultures and stuff is not gonna ride. My Naga, they ain't gonna get a Naga nowhere. Get a Naga nowhere in the world, nowhere. Hey, man, I hope y'all like tonight's show, man. Like I said, I started to do this thing members only, but I said, nah, I'm gonna try but with the whole family. I ain't gonna be too strict. I said, I ain't gonna let's start right there, son. Hey, FYBJ, man, this Naga here is retarded, man. That Naga funny to me though for some reason. He said, let's start right there, son. I ain't gonna just hold everything back. I said, I got so much, I'm gonna pop off some of this stuff anyway. If a Naga wanna bite my style, let a Naga bite my style. I'm gonna just keep exposing them. But certain stuff I'm still gonna keep for members only. Cause I'm gonna let it marinate with my members first. You know what I'm saying? Salute, tribe. Hey, so Selena in this bitch. So Selena hit that dislike, boy. Hit a dislike, boy. Old big cone head, boy. Hey, man, I'm Blackjack, man. This is House of Cons, man. I hope everybody had fun, man. I hope everybody learned something new, man. Tribe up, share the channel, you know what I'm saying? Subscribe, get your membership, hit the like button, man. Y'all, we out. I gotta go check on my mama real quick. It's getting kind of late. Make sure she's straight before I call her tonight. Gotta go to her house real quick, y'all. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.